Hello, Lucha Leaders. It's me, Miss Almerito, here for another lesson on math. Today's topic, distributive property of multiplication. This property is probably one of the most useful properties for you to understand. As an adult, I still use it. It helps me do math problems so much faster and so much easier. But let me show you. The distributive property of multiplication means that we break a multiplication problem apart. So here's an example. Here we have 6 rows of 5, so that in each of these columns there are 6 x's. Okay, well if we broke up this array, which is again a rectangle made of columns and rows, into 2 parts. Let's draw a line right here after 3 columns. Okay, and we have the left side of the column and the right side of the column. Let's write a multiplication sentence for the left side. Okay, we have 6 rows, or 6 rows, and 3 columns. So that's 6 times 3. And here we have 6 rows and 2 columns. So that's 6 times 2. Well, if we were going to add them up, it would be the same as 6 times 5. Let's break that down even more. The 6's stay the same, so we have 6 here. But the second number that we multiply by is different. But if you can see, the two of them added together equal 5. So 6 times 5 equals 6 times 3 plus 6 times 2. Because we're adding the 2 parts of this array together, even though we broke it apart. Now, you may say, well, this is easy. 6 times 5, I could just roll my numbers. But this helps us a lot with numbers that are too large to roll. For instance, if we said 6 times 17, we don't know how to roll our 6's all the way to 17, but we could break it up easily using the distributive property of multiplication. Let's take a look at our second example here, 4 times 7. In each of these columns, there are 4 x's. Well, let's break it apart. And we can break it apart anywhere. But I'm going to break it apart right here. Okay, on the left side, we have 4 rows of 4. So that's 4 times 4. On the right side, I have 4 columns of 3. So that's 4 times 3. And when I add that together, that equals 4 times 7. Now, I can also write 4 times 7 in a different way. Let's say I wanted to break it down right here. Well, on the left side, there are 2 columns of 4, so that's 4 times 2. And on the right side, there are 5 columns of 4, so that's 4 times 5. And that still equals 4 times 7. As you can see, 2 plus 5 equals 7, and 4 times 3 equals 7. So there are a number of ways to break down this array and still have the same answer. Here's another example, and one where we can't roll our numbers to the next number. I can't roll 8 all the way to 15. My song doesn't go that high. But I can break 15 apart. I know that 15 equals 10 plus 5. So all I need to do is set it up so I multiply 8 by both of those numbers. So I set up my parentheses, and I go 8 times 10, which is my first number, plus 8 times 5. If I roll my 8s to 10, or I can use a simple property of multiplication, 8 times 10, it's just like having 8 and adding a 0, plus 8 times 5, which I know because I can roll my numbers either 5 or by 8 is 40, and then I can just add them up. 80 plus 40 equals 120. There's another way I can break these two numbers apart. I also know that 15 is 8 plus 7. So down here I'll write 8 times 8. So I still have to multiply by this number plus, that's the big one, plus 8 times 7. If I roll my 8s to 8, I get 64, plus 8 times 7, which is 56. If I add those two numbers together, I will still get 120. Let's take a look at another example. In this example, 7 times 16. Well, I know, here's an easier one. 16 is 8 plus 8. So I only have to do multiplication one time and then add. Let's see here. 7 times 8 plus 7 times 8. If I roll my 7s to 8, I get 56. And it's the same over here. And I just add. So 56 plus 56 is 112. But breaking apart numbers is easier when I can multiply one of those numbers by 10. So let's break apart 16 into 10 and 6. So here we have 7 times 10 plus 7 times 6. Although I have to do two multiplication problems, one of them is really easy. 7 times 10 is 70. Plus 7 times 6, if I roll my 6s to 7, is 42. This is also easier to add. 7 plus 42, because I'm always adding a 0 here in the ones column. And that equals 112. Let's take a look at an even more complicated sample. The distributive property also works backwards too, which is going to help you a lot in algebra, especially in middle school. Here we have 4 times 8 plus 4 times 7. Since I am multiplying by the same number, I can do the distributive property in reverse. It's kind of like checking my answer. So I put my first number, which I'm multiplying by here, 4. Then I can add these two together. 7 plus 8 is 15. So I know this number, or this number sentence, should be 4 times 15. Let's take a look at that again. Here we have 6 times 24 plus 6 times 2. We're doing the distributive property in reverse. So we're taking the number that we see twice, or that is multiplied in every parentheses, and putting it down here. We know that 6 is multiplied by some number. And that number, all we have to do is find the sum of the two numbers that 6 is multiplied by. So we have 6 multiplied by 24 here, and 6 multiplied by 2 here. So we're going to add them. 24 plus 2, and that equals 26. So the reverse of the distributive property says that 6 times 24 plus 6 times 2 is 6 times 26. That's the distributive property, forwards and backwards. Good luck with your problems. I'll see you soon.